The first question that occurred to me when I came across you first was, how did a girl who, was born in Limerick, grew up in Baldoyle, how did you develop an interest in wrestling?
As long as I can remember, I was a fan of wrestling, or at least wrestling was in the background of our house. And I had an older brother, so he's really the person that I attribute all of this to, because he'd be watching it, and he was watching it, at the height of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and Mick Foley, and I would kind of walk past the TV, and then I get sucked in, and then I want to know what happened next. And that's really where my love for it started. I mean, my love for it started probably with Hulk Hogan and when I was 7, but when I got a little bit older, like I'm talking 12, 13, 14, that was when I really developed an interest in it. And when I found out they were opening a school in Bray, County Wicklow, I was like, oh, I want to do that. I'd already decided that I wanted to get on the straight and narrow and start working out and being healthy, but I was a little alternative kid, and so doing something conventional wasn't really up my alley. I was looking for like kickboxing or something. I was also an angsty kid, so something I could kind of take my aggression out. And so when I found out they were open, I was like, oh, well, that's it. That's the thing. And then I'd never been good at anything. I'd never been good at anything, really. And I'd never wanted to be good or wanted to be better at anything. But as soon as I started that, it was a drive that I hadn't experienced before. And I was like, oh, this is what it's like to have a passion.
And again, that school, were there a lot of girls in that school? Was it?
No, I was the only one.
The only one.
I was the only one, and I actually think that worked to my benefit, because I was an insecure, underconfident kid, and I think because I was so bad, and I was so god awfully bad, that if I saw a bunch of other women that were really good, I might have been intimidated. But I was awful, but I was the only girl. And so I feel like I could console myself that I'm not bad. I'm just at a different athletic capability than these men are currently. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a little bit weaker and a little bit slower, but I'll catch up eventually, And so I made those allowances for myself, which at the time kind of helped. But then when I got signed to WWE and I was in NXT, there were all these women with this athleticism that I'd never seen before. And I was comparing myself. And I was like, oh, I'm bad. I'm not as good as I thought I was. But it drove me to be even better. And I arrived at the perfect time with the perfect women. There was a group of us that they called the 4 Horsewomen of NXT. And we all just wanted to be the best, and we wanted to change the game. And I think that level of competition just drove us so that we could change the game in the way that we did, I suppose.
I think perhaps for listeners, we will have listeners who won't be familiar with the WWE. We need to explain to them like how huge you are, like that you are
kind of a big deal.
You are kind of a big deal. You are wrestling royalty. You are the Messi of the wrestling world. That's fair enough, isn't it? Just go on.
I've been lucky enough to be in a spot where I've been able to change the way that people view women in sports or in sports entertainment, in wrestling. And I was the first woman to main event Wrestlemania, which is our big event of the year. That's like our Super Bowl. And in 35 years, it had never been done before. And even when I got signed, I don't think anybody thought it was ever going to be done. It was just the position that females were at that point, and not due to their own inability, but just
the culture of wrestling at that time.
The culture of wrestling at the time, and
because women were seen as decorations, really.
Decorations and attraction. Usually there would be one token women's match on a card, and we've thrown all that out the window.
And even the wet t-shirt competition, all of that element of it, does that persist even with, you know, the stature that you have now gained within the industry? No, is that gone?
No, that's gone. Yeah, the gone are the days of the wet t-shirt competitions and the bra and panties matches and the mud wrestling matches. Yeah, that's all gone. And we're just seen as wrestlers, as characters, as storytellers, as athletes in our own right.
Okay, let me talk to me about that, because again, people be listening to this, they won't understand what is wrestling.
What is wrestling? Wrestling is
how does it work is what I want to know.
Oh, okay. How does it work? Well, now
how much can you tell me about how it works?
That's a whole different deal. But essentially, it's telling stories through a different medium, right? Like, I think of myself as an artist. I think of the craft of wrestling as an art. And that art is to elicit an emotional response. And we do that in the moves that we do and the story that we tell in the ring. And essentially, it's the oldest story of time. It is. There's a good guy, a bad guy, and good must prevail over evil. And how do we do that? And how do we get the people invested in wanting their hero to succeed? How do we take them on a journey? And it's every single movie. It's every single movie. And wrestling is that. It is the beginning. Everything's going so great for the good guy. And then it all falls apart. And the villain is taken over. But the good guy gets some hope in there. And you think it's going to go well. And all of a sudden it all comes crashing down. And then it's the finale and the sequel. And then what you always want is a happy ending. Maybe you won't get it, but that's the story that we tell over time. Eventually you'll get that happy ending, and that's what we want the audience to want. And it's just a beautiful thing, and there's not another industry like it, and I love it.
There absolutely is. And I was watching wrestling, watching you and watching wrestling. You know, I wouldn't have been a fan up to this. But it's just extraordinary, like the athleticism that you require and some of those moves. And I know, as we say, it's storytelling, so it's, you know, there's choreography in there, there's scripting in there. But if you miss your mark, like, you could be in real trouble, couldn't you?
Yeah, of course. And so, you know, the word that gets thrown around a lot is fake, and we don't like to use that term because it hurts, you know. And I think when people say fake, then it kind of diminishes the work that we put in. And there's no stop to this grind. It's 52 weeks a year. It's 4 days on the road, sometimes more. And the level of damage that it does to our body, but also we're constantly having to be creative of how do we tell these stories? How do we keep people invested? And so we're going through a lot. And not to mention that all of this is done live. All of this is done live. These are huge stunts sometimes that are being performed live on TV in front of millions of people. We're worrying about camera angles. We're worrying about what time we have to go to break, what time we have to get to a commercial, what time we have to finish. And there's all of these things that come into it. And it is such a craft and it is such an art. And when it is done well, there is absolutely nothing like it. And so so that's why when people say fake, well, don't diminish what we do.
Can you improv at all within that? You can improv within it. So there is that element as well. So you have a kind of a rough script to get from A to B to C, but within that, things can happen that you don't expect.
Well, because it's a live show and we're in front of a live audience. And so if the audience is wanting to go one way, but you're like, no, I'm sticking to my plan, then you're losing the audience. And you can hear, and that's the great thing about it being live, is that you get to veer off course. And I think that's when some of the best stuff happens, you know?
It's just fascinating. And if you are the good guy, there's a term.
Babyface.
Yes. So can you switch character then? Because you've done both, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been a heel and I've been a babyface. And so can you switch heel or switch characters? Yeah, absolutely.
And does it take a lot of work to get your audience to accept you?
One way or the other,
Yeah.
it can. So it depends. So when I turned heel, when I was a bad guy, there was a lot of people not ready for it. You know, I had come back from just having a child, and a year and a couple of months away. And so when I came back, they were excited to see me, and we had to turn all of that on its head. But that's also exciting, you know. Like, I love the challenge of how do we do this.
Is it more fun? Surely it's more fun to be the heel.
It's so much more fun to be here because you can do no wrong. You can do no wrong. Like, if they like you because you're being so good at being bad, then great. If they don't like you, great. You know, when you're a good guy, it's a lot harder. And I think generally, people's instinct, I think as a survival instinct, probably is to, first off the bat, what's this person up to? What do they want? You know, we question people, and we make them earn our trust and earn our respect. And so I think that's a bit harder. And I think also just the changing of the audience, right? The culture is always changing. And so gone are the days of the good old guy that's shaking hands and smiling all the time. And I think they like people that are a little bit more rough around the edges and have that edge and have that ability to stick up for themselves and
like so much of what
not
you do.
take any crap.
Yeah, but so much of what you do is performance.
Yes.
I mean, like it's you're theatrical, it's theatre, it's like how much of your regime, your training regime, you know, what you do have to do for all those massive shows, how much of it is physical, you know, training your body, and how much of it is practicing the theatre of it?
Well, like I said, we're 52 weeks a year. So that is the practice. I think getting in front of an audience, and even though we have 1, 2, 3 live televised shows a week, we also have non-televised events. So we're constantly getting to perform. And I think that is the best teacher, being in front of a crowd, understanding what they respond to, what they like, learning how to listen to them. Because I think when you first start, you got tunnel vision. This is my plan. This is what I want to do. And you can sometimes lose the ability to listen to what the crowd wants. But when you get more experience, when you've been in the game, for as long as I have, you learn to listen, and you take that into account, and you can apply that to your match and your promos. And then working out, I work out 5 days a week for not very long at a time, because my body's already taken enough of a beating.
You did have a serious injury at one point, didn't you?
I recently separated my shoulder. Yeah, so I recently did that at SummerSlam, like I think 2 or 3 minutes into the match. Completed the match with a separated shoulder. Yeah, very, very, very painful. I'd never had that before. I'd never had in WWE, and the whole time I'd been there, I'd never had an injury that had taken me out for as long as it did. But it's fine now. It's fine. It still looks a little janky, but other than that.
Do you worry about that? Like, could you have a career-ending injury if you fall the wrong way, or like, is that part of the deal? Like, say, you know, national hunt jockeys would see that as part of the deal.
Yeah, but you can't think like that. Yeah, you know, like, it's one of those things where I think somebody used this analogy with me a while ago, where, you know, if jockeys are going, they're going, and if they look to one side, and the horse can trip, and then that's lights out for them. So you kind of have to keep the blinders on, and the thing about what we do is we're well trained to do it, and so and so we try to minimize that risk as much as possible.
Take me back. Your big breakthrough. Am I right in this? It was in 2016, WrestleMania 32. That was
a big breakthrough. Yeah. That was my first WrestleMania.
Okay. Talk to me about that. Like, did you have a sense at that moment that actually this could be massive?
Yes. Yeah. So that at the time was the biggest WrestleMania in history. Over 100,000 people in attendance.
Live.
Like, is that the population of Cork? I think that might be, at one stage, when I was growing up, when we were learning populations, that was the population of Cork. So, so hearing that, and knowing that I was going out in front of 100,000 people. Well,
all of them screaming.
All of them screaming was something. This was a game changer of a match, because we were changing the name of the women's title. It had been previously called the Divas title, and for somebody like me, I didn't resonate with the term divas. I didn't resonate being called a diva, because being called a diva, you know, images arise in your head of people looking to pick out the blue M&Ms or whatever, you know. It just, for me, it sounded like a high maintenance diva, for lack of a better term. And so they were changing the title to women's, and the week before they unveiled this title, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I was like, oh man, one day I want to hold that. And the match was a triple threat against myself, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks. And the title was being presented to us by the woman who I looked up to more than anybody in the business, which was Lita. And so when I was going out there, I just remember this feeling of calm, like, we're about to do this, I'm ready to do this. And I was so unnervous. I just remember being like, why am I not more nervous? This is WrestleMania. And I walked out in front of that crowd, and I saw the 100,000 people, and I nearly fainted. And I realized that I was so nervous that my body probably wouldn't let me know that I was nervous, because I'd probably faint and not go out there in the first place. But it was, and it was a great match. We sold the show, and I think that was it really showed people what we could do, and that we were equal when given the opportunity, when given the spotlight, when given the ability to tell the story. That the people
wanted you,
and the people wanted us.
Okay, you know our random questions.
Oh yes.
Give me a number between 1 and 20.
11.
Okay. What can't you live without?
My baby, my husband.
You had your baby there with you.
Yes.
She's just 2?
Yeah, she's 2.
How is that? How do you, and your husband, of course.
Yep. Is also a wrestler. Seth Rollins. Seth freaking Rollins.
Again, huge in
he's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Best wrestler in the world. MBD.
It's, you just said 52 weeks a year, the 2 of you in the same industry. How do you manage with your little one?
No sleep. No. So we're very lucky that we get to bring her on the road with us. And we have a great support system. So we travel in a tour bus, and we have a great setup, because our driver's wife is our nanny, and she's amazing. And so we all travel like this big happy circus family, you know. And she just she's great. She just goes with the flow. Like, we tell her we're going on an adventure, and she loves running around the airport, and she gets to the bus and she has her bus toys, and then we go home and she's got her home toys, and she's got a grandma, and, you know. And so everywhere she goes, she's cared for, and she's just surrounded by really great loving people. And so we're so very lucky that we get to do the thing that we love around the world, and then bring our whole little family with us. It's great.
Give me another question, because I should have been asking you these questions. Give me another number.
5.
Okay, 5. Tell me one regret you have in life.
Oh, gosh, it's hard to say regrets, right? Because if you change anything, it's a butterfly effect, and then you wouldn't be where you are now. I think for a long time, though, I did regret. I gave up wrestling for 7 years, and I regretted that, because in many ways I felt like the prodigal son coming back. Like, I felt like I had this thing, this passion, this thing that I loved, and this gift. But if I'd stayed, there's no telling what would have happened. Maybe I would have gotten signed earlier. Maybe I wouldn't have been ready for it mentally. I would have gotten fired. Like, if I didn't do all the things. I wouldn't have gotten my acting degree. I wouldn't have done all the things that allowed me to be good at the thing that I'm doing now.
When you came back.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did you stop? What happened?
Well, it was a multitude of reasons. I have a very Irish mammy. You met her briefly, and when I was telling her, you know, I want to be a wrestler, and I'd moved off to Canada, and I was in Japan, and I was wrestling around Europe, and I was only 19, and I think she was very worried of what's your plan, 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 and that was what she kept saying, what's your plan, what's your plan, what's your plan. I didn't have a plan because I also couldn't point to what we're doing on TV and say that's what I want to do. Like
because nobody was doing that at that point.
Because
no woman was doing
exactly,
that.
It didn't exist, and so that's been what's so important for me, is to know that what I'm doing will let the future generations take this and build upon it, and so that the sky is the limit. We're already getting there, and I look at the future of women's wrestling, and I'm amazed. I'm so inspired. It's incredible. The future is so unbelievably bright.
But this is still relatively recent, because it was 2018, wasn't it? But you led the invasion.
Yeah.
Tell people about that. Describe that. I was watching that again last night.
So around 2018, I really started to heat up. My character was had turned from this naive baby face to a ass-kicking heel. But the crowd was so ready for it, and they were so behind me as this naive baby face that when they finally saw that I wasn't taking in crap no more, they rallied behind me. And so we had a pay-per-view coming up called Survivor Series, and it was champion versus champion. I was the champion of my brand, which was SmackDown, and Ronda Rousey was champion of her brand, which was Raw. And so there would be a champion versus champion match, and then there would be a 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. If you don't know these terms, Google them, folks, because I don't have time. So anyway, so we had just gotten off a European tour. We were flown into Kansas City last minute. The show had already started. It was pure chaos, but they had this angle at the end where I was going to come out, and then the rest of the SmackDown girls were going to jump the Raw girls in the ring, and then get into this big brawl, and then I'd end up beating up Ronda Rousey, and we would leave through the crowd. And so, but when we came and we started, I turned one of the girls around, and her name was Nia Jackson. She was a larger lady, probably doubled my weight, and she turned around and just punched me full force in the face. And it was very much an accident, but it was the greatest accident that ever happened to me, because even though I was knocked out on my feet a little bit, like I remember like taking that punch and going, no and then it all goes black, with little parts interspersed here and there. And so I kind of got up, and I remembered what I was supposed to do, but my face was just covered in blood. And I rolled out because I had to get a chair, and I remember seeing like trainers coming up to me, and like somebody giving me a towel and wiping my face and throwing it back at them, and then like grabbing the chair, and then I don't really remember. But I do have images of me standing on top of the, because I hit all my marks, and then I ended up standing on top of the arena with all the crowd going crazy, and me acting like a badass with my face covered in blood, and it ended up being one of those, for lack of a better term, an iconic image in wrestling, that I have absolutely no recollection of, really. I remember like walking out through the doors and meeting the security, being like, where am I?
But was that where the man came from then?
The man was, the man might have been born before then. The man,
but that's cemented.
The phrase, I believe, was born before then, and then this gave an image to the movement.
Yeah, and it is a movement, really, isn't it? Like it's not that too big a word to say it's a movement? This sense of you leading trailblazing, leading the way for women in the industry.
Yeah, a little bit. It really did change the way that people looked at women in the sport and what they can do, because I became the hottest act in wrestling, and I always wanted to main event WrestleMania. That was always my goal, but I never wanted it to be a courtesy act. I never wanted it to be like, oh, here we go, the women are main eventing WrestleMania. I wanted it to be because there was no other option than us. That the story was so undeniably good that it was the best story, and I think the best story should always win the main event of WrestleMania, gender aside. And that was what we got.
And that's it. I think people have a difficulty getting their head around that idea that winning is not about winning in the sporting term and then getting across the line first or whatever. It's about what you just said there, isn't it? It's about the best story.
Exactly. It's about getting the best response from the audiences, and it's about changing the game. Right now, for me, it's about changing the game.
Can I ask you about the sisterhood within women's wrestling now? I mean, has there been a metoo movement in wrestling? Is that part of because it's been everywhere else, obviously, especially in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, there was one, I believe it was called Speaking Out. I'm really lucky that I have encountered nothing but, there's been the odd comment here and there, but nothing crazy. But I have received nothing but encouragement from the men, and I feel like I've been able to go where I've gone because of so much help and respect from the men, and because like I said, there hadn't been women that had been where I'd gone before, that I needed to learn how to get there from the guys who had gone before. And so in general, wrestling and WWE, it's such a little village, and it's such a community and such a family, because we're with each other more than we're with our own families. I mean, I'm an exception because I actually travel with my family, but for most people, and before I had my own family, we're with each other on the road 4 days a week, and so you have to have that bond and that community.
Thinking about Katie Taylor,
yes,
and Kelly Harrington, like, women's boxing is so huge, female boxing is so huge here right now, and particularly, I suppose, in the professional sphere, Katie being the first woman to headline in Madison Garden, you being the first woman to do the same in WWE. Do you know Katie, or do you have a kinship there?
I was with her for the day before her fight with Amanda, and we did a hype thing, and I introduced her, and I mean, what an icon. She's a legend, an absolute legend, and then so humble. And I was trying to get her out to an event the next week, but I think after that match she deserved a bit of a rest.
Why are Irish? And look at you, your gorgeous red hair. Do you play off the Irish thing?
I mean, this ain't my real hair colour. I've got roots bigger than a vegetable garden.
Does it work though? Does the Irish thing?
Well, not that I was playing up to the Irish thing, but I may have had one of the most shameful debuts in WWE history when I came out doing a little Irish chick. And I can't do any Irish jigs.
Were they playing diddly music at that point?
Exactly. Yeah, diddly. Do I play up to the Irishness? I mean, it's not like the front runner, but I think there is that thing of the Irish, is like, we're done with taking crap. We're done with the oppression. We're done with that. We're done with that. And we have that edge and we have that chip on our shoulder. And I think I carry that with, but also it's the banter, isn't it? Like, I think the banter and the...
Yeah, because Irish people do well. Like, you're not the only big Irish name in wrestling.
Yeah. We've got Sheamus, we got Finn Balor. But I think it is that it's that banter. Also, just, God, we're such storytellers, aren't we?
Gift of the gab.
Gift of the gab.
Okay, WrestleMania is coming up again, or
Yes.
will be by the time people are listening to this. Tell me about that, this one coming up.
Yeah, so do you remember how I said about Lita giving us the title at WrestleMania 32? Well, now she's my tag team partner. We're tag team champions of the world, which is just, it's just very surreal, you know, the woman who inspired me to do what I'm doing, and now we're going to go in as tag team champions of the world, and we are in a 6-woman tag against, it's myself, Lita, Trish Stratus, both 2 legends, the first women to main event Raw, and against Damage Control. And you know, I have those tag titles, and one of the things that I want to do is change the game with the tag titles. So I'm wanting to defend those tag titles too. So I'm in a 6-woman, and I'm hoping I can defend those tag titles too, because I feel like they need to be represented in their own right at WrestleMania.
How many people will watch this WrestleMania?
Millions. In attendance, I believe we're almost sold out. Or we are sold out. Are we sold out? Almost sold out. I think 90,000 per night. So there's 2 nights of WrestleMania now, and 90,000.
Just these figures are mind blowing.
I know.
It's extraordinary. Like, it's such a massive industry, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we're the biggest entertainment, live event entertainment company in the world.
In the world.
Nobody's doing what we do.
And you, Becky, are one of the biggest names in that industry. Okay, one more.
I did all right from a girl from Baldoyle.
For sure. One more random question. Go on.
Oh gosh, 3.
What lesson have you had to learn the hard way?
1. 1. God, I think it's the lesson we are eternally learning, or not all of us, but I think many of us is to always trust our instincts. I think that we so often doubt ourselves, and whatever that thing is, that whether it's society or whatever other voices that we have in our head that go, but maybe you're wrong, but maybe I should just do it. You know, all the voices that we have that tell us that we're wrong for whatever reason. We feel a certain way, we end up justifying it. And I've always found that I never go, oh, I wish I didn't trust my gut, you know? You always go, I wish I trusted my gut. Why didn't I just listen to myself? Why didn't I just trust myself? And I think that's probably the hardest lesson I've had to learn, and probably will continue to learn, because I think it's a lifelong lesson.
Would you like your little girl to go into this world?
If that's what she wants to do. I think I think you can't predict what your kid's gonna want to do. I don't think my mom certainly ever would have expected that I would be a wrestler.
I'd be a fairly good guess that this is a bit of a surprise to your mom.
It was a bit of a surprise to my ma. She wanted me to be a lawyer, but here I am. And yeah, I think fighting against my mom not wanting me to wrestle, I think I go, well, whatever she wants to do, you have to support and encourage that, because one way or another, they're either going to find their way back to it, or they're going to wish that they did. And so I think you got to remember that they're not living your life. And so, yeah, I think I just hope that I hope I'll be able to encourage her and support her in whatever she does. Of course, I don't know what teen years are going to bring, but I hope whatever she wants to do will make her happy.
What next for you?
Who knows? Who knows? I have a little left in the tank, and then I got my degree in acting. It's something that I've been doing a little bit of lately.
That
Lauper.
snagged in my brain when you said it, and I thought, have you thought about a career?
Well, that's what I did my degree in here in DIT in Rathmines and in Columbia College in Chicago. And so I'm not really good at much else other than performing. So I think I'm okay at writing. I have a book coming out next year too. But yeah, either something in line of acting, performing.
Tell me about the book.
Always be in the entertainment industry, I think. The book.
Yes.
Yeah, just my biography.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But you've written yourself. You
I've
haven't got a
written myself.
ghostwriter for it?
No, I wrote it myself. And so
where do you get time to write a biography?
So very slow increments as often as possible, you know? So I would just try to steal an hour or two, or if I had half an hour here or there or whatever, and just write as often as I could until it amounted to a book. And then you go back and change it, and then you're like, oh, I don't like this, and then you're going back, and then I took a writing course, and I've just finished it, or about to finish it. It was a year-long writing course, and so originally I started, and I was like, I am a great writer, I am the best writer. James Joyce, move over. And then I took this writing course, and then I realized how much I didn't know about writing, and then I realized how bad my writing was, and now I've been able to go back and change it. And so it was like simultaneously the best and the worst thing that I've ever done. But I like to kind of constantly keep pushing my boundaries of what I can do and learn new skills as I go along.
What are you going to call it? Have you got a name for it?
I don't know, probably Man.
The Man. Okay.
Not your average girl.
Will you take one more random question for me? Because I just love talking to you so much. I don't want to let you go. One more.
What haven't I? I'm trying to go through my lucky number 7.
Oh. What did you want to be when you grew up?
A vet was my first one. A vet was my first one. An actor was my second one. A lawyer was my third one. And then a wrestler. And somewhere in there was a shopkeeper, just because I thought then you just get to eat loads of sweets.
I wanted to be an air hostess at one point, and I think you actually got to do that.
I did get to be an air hostess. I never wanted to be an air hostess, but I got to be one.
Okay, Becky Lynch, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I so enjoyed that.
Thanks for having me.